Hi, this is David Gornoski, host of A Neighbor's Choice and Things Hidden podcast, as well as some of our other programs like Science and You with our chief science advisor, Dr. Yu, and our seed oil survival series that we continue to have great fun unpacking the truth of nutrition. I wanted to give you a quick little message saying we appreciate all the support that we get from our monthly contributors and our one-time donation supporters. And we'd encourage all of you to go to our website, aneighborschoice.com, click on contribute, and make a monthly pledge today, whether it's $1, $5, 15, 20, 50, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter. Just be a part of building this new media project that we've developed to empower and inform, to inspire, to kickstart a scientific renaissance, an anthropological breakthrough and reformation in the church. All these things are possible with your support right now. So make that commitment today and help us keep doing the productions that we have. Thank you.
This is what was really interesting. There was a chapter in Queen Liliuokalani's autobiography she wrote where she actually wrote it when she was held up in the Alani Palace, and she was imprisoned in one particular room. Mm-hmm. And she thought that the entire history of the Hawaiian people was going to be erased from history. Mm-hmm. You know, that they were just going to be eliminated because these psychopath children of missionaries that had really rejected the Christian faith by doing what they did. You know, they held her up in the palace at gunpoint. She thought that all of her people's history was going to be totally erased. So she thought, what can I do here as a last-ditch effort to try to preserve our history? Because in her mind, the way that she perceived Hawaiian history was that it was this trajectory upward, and then when the Hawaiian people encountered Christianity, that was like the christening of like the perfection of the Hawaiian people, you know. And so she made this quilt, because that was the only thing that she had like sewing materials, she had like textiles and stuff there in the room or whatever, and she sewed this beautiful quilt that I didn't have. So I got to see it in person, but I don't know a whole lot about Hawaiian history, so I didn't have the capacity to really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. But it's this massive quilt, and it symbolically tells the story of the Hawaiian people as they understood themselves. Mm-hmm. And it ends. I forget what the last tiles were, but I remember it had something to do with Christianity coming to the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah. You know, that brings me to this question, man, because last time we were talking about this, you know, and I kept thinking to myself, you know, like David was talking about, you know, like when you say, you know, sins of the fathers, you know, I mentioned like the sins of the father, you know, being passed on to the son, you know, and you think to yourself, you know, David made a statement like there is some truth in people feeling victimized by past ills, you know, things that have happened in the past, right? But for me, I'm like, okay, there should be a distinction. There should be a distinction between people who want to dress as men, who want to dress as women, right? And people who've had their land stolen, or their sense of identity taken away from them. You know, I mean, that's, you know, okay. And so I'll put it like this, like we, you know, we got Pride Month, right? We got this month where we talk about, you know, where we want to uplift and uphold the identity of the LGBTQ Q plus infinity group, right? But you know, but then we have this whole thing of, okay, Hawaii, which is considered a state in the United States, right? And native Polynesian people feel as though their land has been taken from them, right? But the government, you know, the state doesn't really recognize that at all. You know, they'll I mean, I don't really hear much about it, you know, is what I'm saying. I don't really hear much about it. And I don't really know how to think about that. You know, I feel in some respects like, you know, there's sort of a economic side to this, right? Like, this is an island that's in the middle of pretty much nowhere. Who are they really going to have any kind of, you know, relationship with if they're not tied to the United States? But at the same time, you're like, man, we did kind of coerce them or, you know, put them under duress in order to control that island. So, you know, and you know, and yes, okay, you can make the same statement for United States in general, right? But there's a part of me that's like, okay, where's the cutoff for that? You know what I mean? Where can people say that, you know, the past, like, okay, we have to forgive and move on in a different way, but acknowledge that wrongs were done. I don't really know how to navigate that. So,
well, what a lot of modern day, New York Times reading, CNN and MSNBC watching, wealthy white liberals would say that that the Hawaiian people, they don't really have anything to be upset about because Bill Clinton in Congress officially apologized in the 90s for the wrongs that were done to them.
and what did Bill Gates do for Hawaii?
Well, they just publicly apologized. You know, basically what they said was, hey, we're sorry for your luck, but we're still keeping it.
Right. Right. You know, that's what I'm talking about. Like, okay, you know, it's just like, yeah, we're sorry for your loss, but we still got a naval base here. We're not going nowhere. You know what I mean? And you don't get no month. You know what I mean? We don't have no.
And you know, that's the tragic thing about Hawaii is the native Hawaiians there, they didn't understand property rights in the way that we do, because the Hawaiians viewed property very much in a way that, like, that pre-industrial Europeans viewed property, where you would have kind of like common lands that might be that might be divvied up among families and stuff, but they would view it as being absurd, the notion that family permanently owns that piece of property that they farm, you know. And so when Sanford Dole and Stevens and this merry group of jerks that fomented the coup that overthrew the Hawaiian monarchy, when they set up their authoritarian government, they imposed a foreign concept of property rights to the Hawaiian people, and the Hawaiian people, they didn't understand it at all, you know. So what they did was they basically went and the class of people in Honolulu that staged the coup, they went and filed property claims across, for property spanning across all the Hawaiian Islands, and the native Hawaiians didn't see any need for that, because they just thought, well, this has been my land, this has been my family's land for generations, so we don't have to do that. Well, they did.
Yeah.
They had to do that in the brand new system that they were not accustomed to. So so overnight, this little group of like plantation owners and stuff in Honolulu, they staged a coup and took over all of the Hawaiian Islands, and they held the queen up at gunpoint. And they even stripped the queen of her name and everything. I forget what new name they forced her to accept. But she ended up marrying a guy with a white guy with the last name Bishop. So her last name, it became Bishop, and she ended up taking a new first name at the behest of the government. But she instantly became one of the wealthiest people in Hawaii. So what she did was she took the wealth that she inherited, like the secured property rights that were kind of like claimed by the throne, and she turned it over into a trust. And to this day, it's one of the largest medical trusts in the world, and they help they help Native Hawaiians out financially and they helped them out with healthcare and with getting education and stuff. And they have a semi-public, semi-private education system for Native Hawaiians and stuff. But it doesn't really take care of the problem there, because Native Hawaiians typically live in multi-generational houses where you've got like 3 or 4 generations, and even 3 or 4 families all cohabitating in like a 2 or 3 bedroom house with no air conditioning. And it's because they're so broke, because that country got ransacked by this authoritarian class of people. The most well-known family that ransacked that country had the last name Dole. You
like Dole whips?
Yeah. Well, I did go to the Dole plantation, and I had Dole whips, and I enjoyed the Dole whips.
So you support the Dole family?
Well, well, listen, I did support the Dole family by going to the Dole plantation, but the thing is, I don't really see a way.
You should have balanced it out with a more than equal contribution to that trust.
Yeah.
Well, David, now that you point out an indulgence that I can do to make up for that grievous sin, I'll have to go in. Yeah, I'll have to go and write a check.
Double what you paid for on that Dole whip at that plantation.
Now, do I have to factor in compounding interest with that too, or can I just pay can I just pay an equal amount to them?
70 times 7.
Wow.
So you're saying Mr. Dole married the monarch? It wasn't Mr. Dole.
No. It was not Mr. Dole. It was a guy.
The Chiquita family, was it? They were down in Latin America.
No, the family that owned Chiquita overthrew the government in Guatemala.
Yeah, and Honduras too, right?
Yeah, Honduras, Guatemala, and
Banana Wars.
Yeah.
So who was more brutal, the banana companies in Latin America or the pineapple guys in Hawaii? That's interesting.
They were both equally as brutal.
So Shane, from our binary dialectic friends, you sound right now as if you are part of the revolutionary spirit. You have a liberationist mindset. You're very angry. There's a lot of conservative trads, these words, and they want monarchs, and they believe you shouldn't apologize for past conquests and all that. So you sound like a liberationist.
Or maybe I'm the most conservative trad of us all, because I would support reestablishing the Hawaiian monarchy.
Yeah, me too.
The Kingdom of Hawaii.
Yeah. I think we're monarchists at heart.
Should we give Alaska back to Russia?
Listen, I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Why not? Yeah.
We just got to find someone to take California. That's the worst. Yeah.
Give it to Spain.
China.
China. Let's give it to China.
Yeah.
Give it back to Mexico, man. Let them take care of it.
That's
Well,
true. Yeah, what would they do with it? Yeah.
should we give it to the Canadians?
No, not with Trudeau in there, man. And then and then you got to give Quebec back to the French, man.
And I'd be perfectly fine with that too. It's just the thing I'm thinking
Why
is
can't we give it to North Korea and then we can encompass them in all the sanctions we have? California.
Well, listen, I'd be
grandfather
perfectly
them
fine
into
with
the
that
sanctions.
Yeah.
How do you think
Well,
North Korea would handle all those folks in California right now? Man, my goodness, can you imagine if Kim Jong-un came in there saying, "New boss in town"?
Pull all their fingernails out and their teeth.
Imagine what he'd be doing. And when he gets the bill for the reparations that they're wanting, can you imagine what he's going to say to that? Woo!
Well,
you expect me pay this? No.
Well, the only thing is North Korea would probably stand to lose more than California would because California would be infusing their values into North Korea that's already barely hanging on by a thread.
Right.
Who would subvert who? Do the North Koreans, do they understand that? Does the government understand the art of subtle subversion, or would they be just so heavy-handed and then the California would respond with some kind of passive-aggressive attempt to bring them in as another collection of pet victims? You know what I mean? Little victim pets. Like, no, but you're when like Kim Jong-un or whatever is trying to put one of his enemies into a piranha tank, they're like, no, but this is just. You're just institutionalized white supremacy is oppressing you. You're not really letting those fish feed these people alive because you want to. It's just because you have to, right?
Well, it's better that they put them in a tank of piranha rather than Pacu.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you talked about that last time. The Pacu versus the piranhas, man.
Yeah, those Pacu fish are terrifying.
That's crazy, man.
So you've got this the story about Hunter Biden that's in the news that he got no probation. Revolver.news headline says Hunter gets probation, Trump dies in prison, Newsom wins 2024. The regime's plan unfolds with stunning new information. And it talks about how it shows this Mike Davis, former law clerk for Neil Gorsuch, connects the dots, and you can actually see their plan coming to life. Here's what Mike shared in his tweet about one of the federal prosecutors on Hunter's sweet deal. Derek Hines is one of the federal prosecutors on Hunter Biden's sweetheart deal. Derek Hines served as special counsel for former FBI Director Louis Freeh from 2013 through February 2015. In April 2016, Louis Freeh gave $100,000 to two of then VP Joe Biden's grandkids' trust. So that's the guy that was he served as special counsel for the former FBI director. Who gave $100,000 to two of then Vice President Biden's grandkids' trust. So in 2021, the article says the New York Post reported on that sketchy $100,000 donation to Joe's grandkids. These kids are already among the most privileged in the world, so it raised eyebrows as to why they would need more money. But let's be honest, we all know it had nothing to do with helping the grandkids. Former FBI Director Louis Freeh gave $100,000 to a trust, this is the news story, to two of President Biden's grandchildren as he sought to pursue some very good and profitable matters with him, newly surfaced emails reveal Thursday. He apparently made the gift in April 2016 when Biden was the outgoing vice president, and shortly before he told Biden's son, Hunter, quote, "I would be delighted to do future work with you," according to the emails. So this is the guy who was connected to this. The special counsel for this guy was Derek Hines, who was the guy apparently involved with overseeing this deal for Hunter Biden. You see how that works? Isn't that interesting? So he's the summarize this the way I've said it here. He is the he was the special counsel for FBI Director Louis Freeh from 2013 to 2015. Louis Freeh gave $100,000 to VP Biden's grandkids trust. And then that special counsel for that guy that's donating that kind of money is in charge of the probation deal for Hunter Biden. Right. See, it's a network here. This is a good old boys club, and everybody's put in the right position to take care of matters.
Are those grandkids the children of Hunter Biden, or
I don't know?
Well, and you know,
I think he's wondering about a lot of kids. Are they his kids or not? You know, we don't know at this point.
Well, you know, I think this is a snapshot of the reason that centralized power is so dangerous. You know, because when you centralize everything into the DC puddle, you know, it's a very small body of water, and you've got a lot, and you've got a bunch of fish swimming around in there, and just de facto, everybody in that DC pool, they're all going to come to know each other. They're all going to intermarry. They're all going to have financial interests, you know, tied to one another. So, you know, the thing is, when you centralize power, whether it's intentional at the beginning or not, you're going to end up with one giant syndicate of corruption. Yeah. And that becomes the norm. You know, the exception to the rule are the people that are not crooked and corrupt, which I venture to guess are very small in number in DC.
Right. They'll snuff them out. You know, it's like the Roman senators. You know, I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do something for you, you do something for me. Hey, remember 2 years ago, we were in the bathhouse and you asked me for a favor. Yeah. Okay, now I expect that in return, brother. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's, you know, like you said, it's a network. You know what I mean? And they're more familiar with you know, all those closet deals than any of us are. And they have you know, they have enough legal protection, enough political protection, enough social clout, you know, to protect them from any kind of, you know, problems. You know, we were just talking about how, you know, what was it? Kodak Black runs into the same problem as Hunter Biden, but Hunter Biden gets away with it. You know what I mean? And I said, you know, you can have the money, but doesn't mean you're gonna get the title.
And he still got some stroke because he got pardoned by the former president, but still, you know what I'm saying? So even someone with the kind of connections that can actually get a presidential pardon, but he still didn't have enough connections to he got a 3-year sentence for what Hunter's getting nothing for.
He had the wrong connections. That's
right. Well, and I think you just nailed it. I think you just nailed it right on the head right there, is that he's politically connected to the opposition faction,
to the off-brand team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every facet of the federal government at this point, it's been weaponized against their political enemies.
Yeah.
You know, so he's just going to end up being cannon fodder, you know.
I wonder if that's why he got such a harsh sentence. I don't know the details, but I wonder if he had some kind of relationship with I don't know, like Trump is so kind of fickle about those pardons. You don't know what the deal, you know, what was the deal, if it was some kind of business deal or friendship in the past or connections and so forth. That same guy is talking about Mike Davis. He goes on to have a Twitter thread saying Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Biden Justice Department put Democrat political operatives on Trump cases. Here's just one example. Sophia Brill worked on Biden's unprecedented raid on Trump. Now Sophia Brill is working in the Biden White House. She also was, she recently served as a top Democrat attorney on the Senate Judiciary Committee, including for Chris Coons and Corey Booker. He goes on to disclose yet another example of a political operative, Matthew Colangelo, who held a prominent position as a political appointee in the Biden Justice Department. The media portrayed Matt as, quote, a former senior DOJ and NYA Attorney General official, and very conveniently omitted his role as a political appointee in both the Obama and Biden administrations. It's all one big club, and we, the people, are not invited.
Mhm.
Now let's go back to the backstory of Jack Smith, the article continues. The man on a mission to see President Trump locked up for the rest of his life. Jack was handpicked by Merrick Garland to serve as a special counsel and take out Trump in 2024, and he's a card-carrying member of the club. In 2020, it was a big year for Katie Shavini. She produced a film about Michelle Obama and donated $1,000 to Biden's presidential campaign. Now her husband, Jack Smith, indicted Biden's chief political enemy the day after Biden got caught taking a $10 million foreign bribe. So it's a club, you know, and it has to have a certain kind of mafia framework, apparently. And unfortunately, the American people have been largely, some of them have been so weaponized in ignorance that they're not able to snap out of it in time to do what's necessary. And I don't think anybody, like, I don't know, you know, I think like the level of education that the population would have to deal with this in a sober way is not something, you know, I don't know if we're at that point right now, you know, because it's not about firing the guy and hiring a new guy. No, you have to dismantle these things. That's what the new right is fantasizing for a Caesar, because they want, and they think, and they have an argument there that a strong executive could clean house, a good, you know, charismatic figure, right?
Yeah.
Who actually knew how to use power, not Trump. They feel like Trump was a kind of a cartoon version of this, but like, and then others disagree and say no, you know, but whatever. They say like a really sober, serious, and very charismatic and very effective younger Trump with like an FDR type figure who would go in and just systematically dismantle the labyrinthine oligarchic based bureaucracy. That's what they're dreaming for and craving, and they want, you know, because and their argument is you're never going to get enough buy-in legislatively to roll back the bureaucracy. You know, there's just too much entrenched money protecting the loot system that's going to all the different regulated industries, and they've all got way more organized machines to always bamboozle the disorganized masses from ever having enough legislative power to get efficacious rollback of these corrupt systems. So you need a kind of FDR figure who can, by executive, you know, strength, roll it all back in the name of liberty, kind of thing, in the name of America or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? You want that?
One of the only practical solutions I can think of as far as what can be done is to increase the number of people in the House of Representatives, to increase the number of congressmen in the House of Representatives to like 5,000 or 10,000 or something, and make them stay at home in their districts as long as possible. Because that is something that I think could really stem some change. You know, but this system where we have like what 435 of them.
I think it would be such endless lunchroom drama, though, man. Would it really do anything? I mean, I understand the point in theory, but I think, did you see today Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert on the House floor calling each other little bees? And, you know, I guess Marjorie Taylor Greene called Lauren Boebert a little bee, and they're yelling at each other because they had dueling impeachment policy laws. They had dueling impeachment bills for Biden, and they were mad that the other one was putting up before hers was in. And that's what you would get, I think, if you had 5,000 Congress people. You'd have people, they'd be brawling. No, I'm going to impeach him. No, I'm going to impeach him. Like it's just a cartoon. I think it would just devolve the whole thing even more so.
But
then the bureaucracy would just control it even more, man. I think at that point, at the state of where we're at, man, if you had 5,000 representatives, it would just become even more, pop culture entertainment than like it already is. It would just get even more so, and the bureaucracy would just keep running the show even easier.
But then it becomes much more difficult to pass funding. Yeah, it becomes a lot more difficult.
Well, the bureaucracy would just go to, Federal Reserve funding fully then or whatever. They just find a way to keep going.
Maybe it'd be so cartoonish. The more you have, you say, okay, we're going to have 5,000 this year. Next year, we're ramping up another 5,000. And every year we just keep going to the point to where it just becomes so out of whack that it just implodes. You know what I'm saying? But my thing was, back to your point, David, about the people not really having, not really knowing what's going on. I think it's intended to be that way, right? To where you're not really focused on the what's going on, in DC. Like aesthetically, it looks like this place that it's like going to Rome. You know what I mean? It's like going to Jerusalem, right? I mean, we've said this, many times, right? And it has that facade that this is a very serious place. Don't step foot in here unless you're ready to, really go hard on the paint, with some very intelligent people, even though they're all just, I don't want to say not intelligent, but, they're really just, power hungry, I think narcissistic people, they have some narcissistic tendencies, and I think it's a measure to confuse the regular working person, and on top of that, there's a fear factor also involved in that. You know what I mean? Because I've told you, I was telling you, Shane, like, they talk about, the IRS, and they talk about, the feds, and, they have all these arms, of the state that it's like, you don't want to get involved in this. You don't really want to start uncovering the truth, because once you do that, then, we'll show you, what can happen to you if you do, if you turn the other cheek, if you take the wool off of your eyes, you know what I mean? Then you're really will put you in prison. You know what I mean? And so it's people they stay away from it. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, it's all fun and games when you hear people, arguing across the, the House of Representatives floor or the Senate floor, and a senator can give a rhetorical, hyperbolistic, talk for, I think, however long they want, right? They they don't have to sit down, so, it has that appearance of being very serious, but I think it's all just a ceremonial windbag. That's what I want to say, man. That's how I feel about it. They're just a bunch of windbags, bro. They don't do nothing. They just talk, and you just get tired of hearing them. You're like, would you shut the up?
Yeah.
A democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people may take away the rights of the other 49%. Thomas Jefferson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But but we have a population that is so, the education system has failed to cultivate, higher order, processing and critical thinking about these things,
Mm-hmm.
And it's eviscerated the family. It's inflated the currency. It's destroyed the ability for families to stay connected. And as people have pointed out, the nuclear family is just the last bits of the family. It's actually the whole extended family was always a part of the family until it got systematically demolished by different things over the last century. But we have to realize that, being able to, we're not in the world that we're not in a cultural moment where reasonable kind of practical discourse in politics will affect real change. Okay. I think that the people on the new right who are, they get into elite theory. They read these Italian theorists. Shane or Shannon, have you guys read these Machiavellian,
Machiavelli?
not Machiavelli, but the whole history after him of all these different Italian thinkers talking about politics in his vein, about the true nature of politics. And it became very fashionable. It became a fashion when Curtis Yarvin mentions Mobug. He was talking about it, and then his stuff caught on for a little bit. And then a lot of other folks on the new right started kind of imitating his interest in it. He got it from Hans Hermann Hoppe in the book, who is not in that vein. He's a little bit different, Austrian libertarian. But his book, Democracy, the God That Failed, he's pulling from those Italian theorists a little bit, analyzing power politics, and so you see a lot of the new right moving away from the libertarian style rhetoric of the old guard Reagan republicanism, and moving more towards I'll give you an example. Aaron McIntyre, who I've had on my program a few times, he's one of those figures in this new emerging vein of thought in the Curtis Yarvin domain. He tweeted out, the left never cared about free speech, the marketplace of ideas, science, or intellectual inquiry. They cared about power. And now that they have it, the discourse is over. And that's the kind of sentiment you see on that side of this new right, that it was always about power. And this notion that, let's have a free market of ideas is a fool's game. These people don't care. Yeah. They're not here to, let me debate with you about whether we should stop what we're doing here. They're going to go get what theirs is, and they're going to play hard politics when they need to, throw in 20 criminal indictments, and they're normalizing this as the new normal. They just want people to roll over and just keep moving the goalposts further and further.
Yeah. I mean, I've never read anything, post Machiavellian, but I've listened to.
Me neither.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to Mencius Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin, talk about, his viewpoint on having an absolute monarch. He's a proponent of that. He's a monarchist, not in the sense of being an exemplar or a figurehead. He's a monarch in the sense of actually, like, the president running the country as though he's a monarch, right? Like FDR did. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't FDR run the country for more than 2 terms, something like that? He got like
4, I think. He was on his 4th term when he died in office.
Right. So, and essentially he was able to make decisions without even really, any kind of, there was nothing in his way. He could just kind of, make decisions on what he wanted. And so, I mean, talking about an absolute monarch, I mean, I don't know, because then you'd have to deal with whatever monarch you got, whether you liked him or not. You have to accept his decisions, and it seems like that's what we have already right now. I mean, we've Joe Biden might not necessarily be like an absolute monarch, but the people behind him, are making all the decisions, his cabinet, whatever, you know what I mean? And that seems to be the way, it's been done for, a long time. But you know, I've never really been a fan of Machiavelli, or his ideas, because he always seemed just to be a little more too shrewd, too. I don't really know enough about him, but his political philosophy, his idea about politics, just always seemed to me to be a little more like you have to do whatever you have to do in order to get ahead. You know what I mean? That's the main point.
Well, Machiavelli was a modern day sophist, meaning that his view of truth was a consensus.
Mhm.
And it was kind of the beginnings of the whole will to power thing. I mean, not exactly,
Mhm.
but
A lot of
the
people
whole
say
idea was
a
that,
lot of people he was just describing the nature of it, not a lot of people have debates about what Machiavelli's real purpose was with that.
well,
Mhm.
That he
at
wasn't
least
just trying to say that seedy stuff is what I want. He's saying this is how it is. I'm showing you
Mhm.
the sausage making of reality here. And if you want to push towards liberty in it, you need to know how it actually works. And so I'm just going to show
Right.
you what it's really like.
right, but the thing is, he revealed what his view was, which was aligned with the sophists of Athens, where they believed that something was true if you could convince enough people of it.
Mhm.
That was, and Machiavelli's view of truth what was aligned with them. It was a total break in the West from people like Plato and Aristotle.
Mhm.
You know,
Or he was just being descriptive, because I mean, yeah, you can have I suppose you can, Rene Girard was like that, right? He was very descriptive about mimetic theory, and violence and stuff, but he didn't necessarily like say you got to be like this in order to, you know, he wasn't suggesting anything. He was just saying this is the way it is,
Mhm.
and you know, I don't, I know the one thing I know about Machiavelli is he had the same views of Christianity that Nietzsche did, uh, in the sense that Machiavelli believed that Christianity was a weak religion. He believed it was a religion of femininity. You know, he didn't believe it was a masculine religion or a male dominated religion. So that's one reason why I shied away from him. Because I didn't really agree with that. I mean, I don't agree with that, but I could see where he's coming from, right? Because like you think about all the people like that flee the scene of Jesus's death and all of that. It's all the men. Uh, the first people that come to believe in Jesus's resurrection is the women. You know, the people that do for him. He'll the uh, they're the ones with the money and all that. It's the women. So I get that, but uh, I mean, Shane, if you're saying that, that's what he actually believes, I mean, that just for me, that just is more reason to not really believe believe that his whole political view is,
Well, let me set
should
it.
be a problem.
Let me try to anchor it back into because into like practical terms for where we're at. Okay. And I'll use
Yeah.
that by getting, and it's the same thing you're asking Shane. And just to add on to what you're saying there, Shannon, uh, I'll use this debate to frame it. Okay. So you have this debate in the right between those who want to have principles and those who want to have real politic, really understand shrewd politics and go for it. It's all about the power. Get the power, and then you can get your liberty and everything back down the way. Okay. And so I'll set it up this way. Here's a quote from this is just like two different quotes from a quote from Dave Smith. This is a tweet from his. Okay. So he's saying it's fascinating to see the concept of debate actually being attacked by so many. The bottom line is that you either believe in persuasion or force. It's truly a binary. Liberty is persuasion and tyranny is force. And then this same figure I mentioned earlier, Aaron McIntyre, he's at the Blaze. he's a columnist there. He says, in response to that, the progression is chaos, war, order, liberty. Liberty is not an alternative to force. It is a possible benefit that follows after the question of force has already been resolved. Libertarians often skip to the ordered society stage and assume all human interactions occur in a system where contract law enforces itself, but that isn't how it works. So that kind of gives you a snapshot between the two approaches, right, Shane? Is that one is trying to appeal to abstractions like Platonic things and natural law and, higher order principles, and say, no, we must have persuasion. We must have this higher framework. And then the other one on the right is saying, no, okay, we like that, but force is what is undergirding the benefit to have that. So Shane, what do you think? How do you fall on this in this current context of where we're at and where things are moving? And then,
Can you rephrase the question?
Like, where do you fall on that? Are you into this whole power politics thing, or do you like the Dave Smith classical liberal libertarian style? No, stick to your principles thing.
So I guess as far as this stuff goes, I would fall somewhere in the middle. But I think the big question,
slightly sneaky and slightly principled. That sounds like you, Shane. Slightly sneaky and slightly.
And you see, I think that I think it's a very surface level thing to argue about how to maneuver the ship of state and everything. A libertarian or a libertarian or a Christian, which both are not mutually exclusive at all. A leftist, an atheist, both are not mutually exclusive at all. They're all going to have different takes on how to maneuver the state. When at the end of the day, I think the winning strategy is going to be to reveal the state for what it is, because it seems to me that we have two differing points of view on all of this, and it really comes down to the nature of man and the nature of reality. Christians view the human person to be sacred. They view the human body to be sacred. That's one of the reasons that, fundamentally, that practically speaking, we're opposed to things like sodomy, and we view the unborn to be sacred. That, that's why we oppose abortion and stuff and things like that. And Christians are pro-family again, because that extends from the human person having dignity, because we're created in the image of God. Now an atheist, on the other hand, does not view any of those things as being sacred. They only view those things as being sacred if, situationally. It's all relative. The things they view to be sacred are really things that are in nature power. The state. The national security state, they view to be sacred. They view war to be sacred. They view foreign policy to be sacred. And the thing is, Christians don't view those things as being that sacred. So I think what we're looking at are two totally different views on what is sacred. Christians view the human person as being sacred. And the things that the little micro institutions that humans interact with each other. But
to be fair to those Machiavellian types, there's a lot of them are Christians, and they're saying, I want all that too, and the only way we can get it though is we've got to crack a few. They want to use a little force. This is the ancient debate for 2,000 years since Christianity.
But that's because they don't view the human person as being sacred or as being as sacred as the state, which turns them into utilitarians, So what I think the winning strategy for people like all of us is to open the debate about to try to argue that there is no sanctity in the state. There is nothing sacred in the state. The only thing that's sacred about the state are the people that make it up. The people that are actually in it.
The employees.
The actual employees. Now Now, the actions of the employees are not sacred. If those employees are doing things that are harming other people, those things are not sacred. But like, I'll give you an example. The classification of documents, the and an atheist, because they view the state as being the only sacred thing on the planet, they say because the state has classified documents, that makes that's right, and you have no right to contest that. A Christian, on the other hand, would say, okay, I agree that documents should be classified for practical purposes, to maybe to protect people that are stationed overseas, to protect spies that are undercover, to truly protect sources and methods. But
Shane,
you need to justify those things.
Shane, isn't that kind of an incomplete picture of what the left is actually supporting nowadays? Because I was reading a thread from a disaffected progressive who says much of the leftist stuff going on in California and blue states and Washington is all about NGOs taking over. So they have lost. They used to believe in expanding government, in its services, and now the debate is about the right was all about privatizing or shutting down public services, not expanding it. But now basically the debate is the right wants for-profit corporations in partnership with the state fulfilling government services and contracts, and the new liberal left is all about just not, instead of for-profit so much, it's NGOs and these little shady, crooked criminal enterprises that are taking over all these different leftist cities and enclaves and getting all these really seedy deals. So is it really the worship of that? Because I know what you're saying there. I think you're right. I think there is a general background worship and reverence for the Democrat view of the state in general. But I think it's starting to become this kind of it's cartels too. I mean, they worship Pfizer. Yeah. They worship, those are gods too now for this new liberal revolutionary merger of the neocons and the neolibs, isn't it? It's kind of a.
But for them, but the thing is,
Pfizer's only sacred because the state said they could be. Is that what you're saying?
Right, and that's one of the reasons that they view it to be critical. For Christians, we go to church on Sundays, right? And for Christians, we live according to the set of morals that that Christ calls us to live by, and we strive to live incarnationally. For them, on the other hand, their going to church is going and infiltrating, co-opting institutions, because they view those institutions as being sacred. The universities, the state, the intelligence agencies, and all these types of things. Those are the things that they view to be
sacred. It's really the media is the biggest one. Yeah.
Yeah, the media too, because again, they view, just like Machiavelli did, that you can manufacture truth, you don't discover truth. You manufacture truth through consent and through persuasion.
Some on the right say that the left's ultimate telos is towards nihilistic destruction. Shannon, do you agree with that? Yes or no?
I don't necessarily agree with that in totality. I do think that there are people on the left who are like that. You know what I'm saying? I guess we normally define them as progressive left or the far left or extreme left, right? But there are sensible and I think rational people on the left who go to church on Sundays, right? And who don't necessarily share those views. So I wouldn't, I think
it's the animating spirit, even though there's good. Yeah. So there's good folks involved, but is the animating spirit of the left, in your view, a kind of primordial nihilistic zeitgeist, something like that? That's what a lot of people on right-wing political discourse think.
Yeah.
Do you think that animating spirit is this kind of nihilistic destruction of like reality and existence and culture?
I think it's just a mirror of whatever is on the extreme on the right. So whatever the right says is, we need to go back to the old ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got to do,
But
the
are they
things
taking
that
their cues from the right, or is the right taking their cues from the left, or kind of a both?
it's a back and
Yeah.
forth thing.
Yeah,
I really think that.
I was thinking
Yeah.
about that. I was like, it's interesting how the left has normalized. They went from like gay marriage to now they're trying to mess with kids and make it normal.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
they took one step with gay marriage, right? And the right's like, oh, we lost that one, so we go with you on that. And then they go two steps to the, whatever, to messing with the kid thing now. And all of a sudden the right goes two steps back and says, okay, the whole sodomy thing, we're all done with it now. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
So they're mirroring each other. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you go super extreme. Well, I'm going to go super back extreme.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go you're going to go super crazy this way. I'll go super crazy. And not that
Right.
anything, it's not that it's equal, but I agree with you that they're caught up in the mirror doubles.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess further, the left, or I'm not really just the left, but atheists will typically view, in terms of human evolution, that the invention of the state, that in inventing the state, man invented modern man.
Mhm.
That these ape-like, knuckle dragging, cave dwelling, unibrow, creatures, that
Mhm.
they invented the state, and in doing that they invented modern man.
Yeah.
That they are responsible for their own evolution into civilization.
Yeah.
Christians, on the other hand, have a totally different understanding. We view civilization as something that's being restored. And there's also innovation in there too, but we view it as being more of a restorative thing. And I don't think we can divorce what the sense of history is of both sides from where we find ourselves here in the moment. I don't think it's a coincidence that the left, who are predominantly atheists, not all of them, but the left, who are predominantly atheists, they view the only sacred thing in the world as being the state and subsidiaries of the state.
Mhm.
And then Christians view the human person and then subsidiaries of the human person as being the most sacred things in the world.
Mhm. But here's the thing, like, we're talking, in terms of like, people on the right, not everybody on the right is Christian either. I
Right.
mean, not that, I mean, you have atheists in that group too, who just believe in order. They say we want order and we want things to be, written in stone, that, this contract is the way that we will solidify our deals with each other, but, talking about force versus persuasion,
Yeah.
to me, that sounds like are you a Greek or are you a Roman? And I'm like, I'm neither one, man. I'm a Christian, bro. I'm okay with talking in the polis about Christ and speaking about that, but I'm not going to force it. Like, what did Jesus say? If you go to someone's house and you say peace to this house, but they tell you, we don't have anything to do with you, you just shake the dust off your very feet and leave that place. You see what I'm saying? So,
But they're saying that they're weaponizing our principles against us. Like, for example, I'll give you another snapshot of this force versus persuasion, or power versus principles, right? Dialectic. Recently, Ana Paulina Luna, who's a new congresswoman, freshman, elected out of a district in Florida. I've had her on the program a few times. She's become a new up and comer. She put out a bill to censor the creepy Adam Schiff, right? The guy that's had a lot of creepy home parties where people end up dead and stuff, and horrible stuff. But Adam Schiff was going to get a bill by Luna to basically censor him, and also to fine him like millions of dollars as a payment back to the taxpayers for his knowingly lying, allowing the FBI thing to go on and on about Russia. Remember that whole thing? So Luna put it forward, and she needed a certain amount of Republicans to sign on board with it. Thomas Massey of Kentucky, who is always considered by the Ron Paul crowd to be kind of the heir apparent of Ron Paul in the House, he opposed it, and all the Trump fans and right-wing people came really hard at Massey, because Massey said there was no constitutional allowance for the House to, with I think a simple majority vote, be able to, forcibly take that much money from a sitting member of Congress. That they'd have to remove the financial penalty and make it a censure only. And so Massey was successful in pulling out the dollar punishment that Luna's bill had, and it was reintroduced with Massey's support, where it was just a formal censure without having the financial penalty added to Schiff. And Massey said, look, I'm here to follow the Constitution. I don't care if you right-wing mobsters, the mob are trying to shake me down. You're not going to get me to change my view. And then everybody else was saying, well, see, this is the example of the losers like Massey who go along with principles and they never get anything to punish these insane criminal people. So what do you think of that?
So he's saying that Massey is being sort of a traditionalist conservative, rather than being like an extreme conservative, like F the Constitution.
Yeah, we're going to get them. We're going to get revenge. We're going to get revenge with demonstrations of power. And then Massey is saying, no, well, we need to do it in a way that follows the rules of what's the law.
Right. And that's the thing about it. I think with the neocons, this term, neocons, new conservatives, right? They what they're doing is the same thing. They're saying, okay, but the left doesn't follow the contract. They don't follow the Constitution. They don't follow the very thing that we deem to be sacred. So why should we do it either? They've broken the contract. So let us stop, holding on to that, and let's duke it out. Like they want to fight.
See, that's the difference between power versus principle. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Is it power first or principle first? See?
Man, I think it's
because if it's power first, I really do. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, well, what is Christianity going to make us do? Is it going to make us stick to principles first and say, no, look, I was hired to do this. My job says I took an oath to this Constitution. It may be functionally dead, but I'm still hired to do a job. This is what's right. I'm not cutting corners. I'm going to follow the rules. I wish it was easier, but this is the way we have to fight for civilization to maintain itself so it doesn't degrade into mob rule further than it is. And then the other side says, no, but we're already degraded. We got to fight back against the killers. So which way is it?
I think the solution is to just flee from that altogether. just pull yourself out of that, to say, you know what, man, this is not working. Like it's not,
but it's kind of a metaphor for everything in life, though. Power versus principle is everything in your relationship. So even if you go to a farm and check out from, politics, power versus principle will still be a kind of, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want it your way, or are you going to use some kind of principled procedure to get a more gracious?
So I was just thinking about the Declaration of Independence, and there's a very famous line in there that says, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. And the whole idea there is that the rights are inherent. This is hailing back to Aristotle and Plato. And that the government is a practical institution. It's not sacred. It's a practical institution that's set up so that we can secure our rights, and really beyond securing our rights. And that's like your right to life, your right to property and stuff. It's null and void. And that's the reason that when you go and look at our Constitution.
So is Massey idolizing the Constitution as too sacred when he sticks to the constitutionality of taking that money from Schiff?
Well,
you could play it that way too.
Well, the problem I think right now is that anybody who's realistic about the Constitution, can be viewed now as being out of touch because the entire system is migrated away from this idea that the government is like a machine. It's just practical. There's nothing special about it, and that federally the Constitution is there to make sure that the machine does not operate beyond what it's supposed to operate. It's supposed to operate within particular confines.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're saying you need to go, right?
Yeah, I can stick on for another maybe 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shannon?
Yeah. I just think that I think the right, okay, I think neoconservatives are right in recognizing that the sacredness of the Constitution or the contract has been broken. Okay, I think it's fair to say that they're right about recognizing that, but their response to it, I think, is the problem. They don't have a proper, like, they'll say stuff like Christianity is is the right religion, like it's a good thing, we need to be Christian, but they're not applying it the right, they're not applying it the right way. They're using Christianity as a
and Shannon, to be clear, you're referring to the new right, not the neocons. The neocons are the new right is these younger
Yeah,
Curtis Yarvin types. The neocons are the older boomer warmongering ones.
Right.
And the new right people hate the neocons, but what they share in common is they both hate the Constitution. The difference is that the difference is that the neocon right that dominates the Republican Party tends to still mouth fidelity to the Constitution. Think of like a Mike Pence. It's all about the Constitution.
Yes.
But he's a total criminal violator of the Constitution his entire life. The new right is like, screw the whole, like, let's stick to the Constitution, and you neocon warmongers are wrong, but we need to get, families back, and we need to do it by Caesar's might, right? I just wanted to say that, okay? Just to set those two up. New right and neocon, okay.
Right. And so, I think they're both, in terms of the new right, these young guys, like the same age as us, like I sympathize with them because they have the right intention, to say, like, we do need to restore the family.
They want to cut the BS and let's get back to what's really going on. Yeah.
Right. But they want to do it by means of coercion. And because of that, I think that's what causes people to reject it. Especially people who are, if you're on the left, they're like, I can't get down with that, because now you're treating me just like how, say, like the white man stole this land. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. It's all by force. Why can't I just come to the conclusion that this seems to be right? And the left is always like, well, I'm going to debate you and try to, tell you, like, this is why you're wrong. You're not letting me have my freedom. I'm an individual. I should be able to do whatever I want to do without any restraints or constraints on me. The 19th century brought in this whole, and I learned this, just a couple weeks ago, that, the 19th century brought in this whole thing of equality and the pursuit to the end of suffering, right? Like, we should all be equal. We should all, those are the two sacred things to us, it's equality and the ending of like human suffering. And so all people should have the right to obtain that. But of course, that meant, like, hierarchy is the problem. You know what I mean? If if you're a noble, if you're, an aristocrat, if you are a gentleman, you have some kind of, some upstanding in the community or whatever, you're the issue that needs to go. And so the more we get rid of those kind of people, right, and we start divvying up all the stuff, then the more free we become. Right. The more distractions that we have, like, you get a phone, or you get the new thing, the new, Apple thing that they have.
Yeah, the thing Apple's putting out. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll be so much happier. You know what I mean? If we just create more laws that can, that the state can run things, instead of people actually being able to, work things out amongst each other. We have more, jurisprudence and legal, what we call mediation, the better things will be, right? But it's like, that's the exact opposite of what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. The more laws they put on, the more things that we get to distract us, the more unhappy we seem to become.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's what Christians need to be pointing out. Like, do all this stuff that you see, all of it is a fake thing. You know what I mean? You want to talk about illusions? Like that, these are the illusions. You know what I mean? The legal system, the technological distractions, the micro tech. You know, that's all fake shit.
Well, and Shannon, don't you think that this whole argument that's typically a left-wing argument, but there are a lot of libertarians who will argue this too. They'll say oh, look, if it feels good, do it. Who cares? There's not a heaven above you or a hell below you. Just do it. You know. Well, it's because they don't view the human person as being sacred. You know, that's what it comes down to. And with a lot of libertarians, the thing they view as being sacred are abstract ideas. You know, like principles. And then with the new right. So I don't want to get us kicked off of YouTube or anything, but the new right is a pretty big umbrella. But a lot of the new right will argue, they'll say, well, it's not necessarily the human person that's sacred. It's the human person's history or the human person's race or the human person's language or the human person's like region or nation or something. And the thing is, that's not what makes the human person sacred. Yeah. You know, those are subsidiaries of the human person that can, you know, that can make the experience richer or something. But those are not where humans derive their importance and sacredness from. And then just the traditional atheist left, you know, they project all that stuff onto the state.
You have but you see that they're kind of mirroring the same faddishness that young people are turning to conservative forms of Catholicism and Orthodoxy and so forth. They just turn to the equivalent political structures that were in place when those churches were dominating in history, right? Yes. So that's if you don't have any anthropology or you don't really have any kind of view, I believe I have a view that like there is a kind of progressive revelation. I mean, I don't want to use that word as it's probably meant by a lot of people, but I do think that there's something taking place in history that's being built on top of something, like in the idea. But a lot of Christians who are interested in turning to more conservative forms like Catholicism and Orthodoxy are picking up these. They're just wanting to rewind history, right? Yeah. And you see that, like people who are interested in going back to the founders, there was a view of them. They wanted to get back to Calvinism that was in vogue at the time of the founders. See, so now, well, that wasn't good enough. So now we got to go even more conservative. So let's roll history back further. Okay. And some people park at medieval Catholicism and they go find a church that looks like that and they mouth politics like that. And then some people are good with Orthodoxy. I don't know if that's necessarily the right direction.
Well, yeah, you know, I think that there are a lot of people that are going to tradition, to Christian tradition, because they want to try to revive the past or something. But I think there are a lot more people going to them because Christian tradition speaks clearly to who the human person is. You know, and the thing is, and there's something tangible there. Like, well, then, but why, if it speaks so clearly, then why is it speaking in platitudes? But why, if it's so clear, then why is it that the ones who tend to be drawn to these older forms of Christianity are the ones most dying for violent Christian nationalism? Well, yeah, if it's so clear, if it was so clear, then why are they all attracted to that same stuff? So the thing I would say to you, David, is out of all the people that are going to traditional Christianity, I think the factions you're talking about are probably the loudest, but I don't think they're the largest number by any means. Yeah, I just don't see an uptick in people calling for peace and stuff like that who are going to these things, but maybe they're out there.
But see, you saying that, David, that's the reason why the FBI did what they did when they did what they did to the traditional Catholic, to put them on that list. You see what I'm saying? I agree with what you're saying, but I also want to say that, you know, the other thing is I think that
They put them on
I
that
think
list because they were watching their podcast, didn't they?
a lot of people are doing that because they feel it's a reactionary thing. You know, they feel attacked. You know, that like, man, every like, you know, you got and you know, whatever, man, I don't care. Like Pope Francis, bro, I'm sorry, I have a problem with him because it's like, okay, you know, it seems like like you talked about the goalpost, it just keeps getting moved every time. So I can see why people kind of are like, you know what, I'm out of there, man. I'm gonna back up out of there, and I'm gonna start going to a traditional Latin mass, you know. And while it has while I sympathize with it because I attend a Latin mass, you know, I do recognize some of the sort of puritanical, you know, the puritanical ways of some of the people, you know, because they want to be just totally holier than thou, like we're about to do everything, you know, the way that, you know, and they don't want to. It's like a retreat
And they'll
from the
just say
world.
you've got too much modernism still in your head, Shannon.
Yeah, they'll say
Right.
I'm still a modernist. You know, they want to retreat from the world. You know, they say, you know what, I'm backing away from anything that has to do with this world because it's just too
But
corrupt.
that's not Christianity. That's my point. So if you're going to those things, I'm not trying to tell people where to go here, but I am saying if you're going to those traditions with that mindset intact, you're not doing a Christian thing. Sorry, even if that's not the Christian spirit. The Christian spirit is not to retreat from the world, but to incarnate into the world.
Right.
And if that means joining a special club in which you get to look at the world and then lecture and attack people because they don't want to be in debt or something, then, you know, that's that's the problem. And we keep forgetting that all of the left sins are fueled by the right wing being hypocritical Pharisees. I mean, Jesus spent most of his time battling Pharisees who were trying to be traditionalists. They were trads, okay? Pharisees were trads. The Pharisees were trads, man, you know, and that's the problem. And he kicked their tails left and right, you know.
Yeah.
And the reason why, until people who want to be trads start really examining why it is, and they'll just be easily beaten by the left every time, you know. That's the point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all pro, you know, listen, I believe the Gregorian chant is sacred. Like I'm pro, you know, tradition. But I think the
You think that God the Father talks in Latin up there in heaven?
I just think
that's one of the sacred languages, David.
The reason behind it has to be other than a retreat. It has to be, you know, there has to be a different intention. You know, it has to be to uphold a sacredness. You know, I do. I remember you talked to Dr. Ugulian and Gil Bailey, you know, and they had this whole thing of sacredness, right? There is something to that. I think, you know, like when God tells Moses, take off your shoes for this is holy ground. Yeah. You know, there is something about.
That's what your grandma says too, right? Take off your shoes when you come to your grandma's house.
Yes.
Right?
There is something about transcendence, you know, that I think is important when we talk about liturgy and things like that. And that there is a component to that. It shouldn't be a reactionary thing though. You know, it should be that it's because it's taking you out of the domain of the world, you know what I mean, into a space where you can actually, you know, it's taking you outside of the norm. And you know, maybe that's being a little too like, that doesn't have enough that doesn't give me enough of a reason to go to the Latin mass or a Greek Orthodox church or something like that. But I do think it speaks to the transcendent. You know what I mean?
If these churches that have money should be buying large places of land, they should be helping young people build houses so that young families, especially those who are young with kids, can have a home without being stuck with compounding interest. And if they want to talk about being trad anything, You can't be trad until you're using those resources of your very rich churches to actually help people rather than to feed them to the wolves and say, good luck, hope you stay conservative. You're just sending them off to the same satanic system. Jesus said usury is a sin, and usury isn't just extreme interest. It's the entire system we have today, which is all about unjust gain without providing any value.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I would agree with that too. Yeah. There needs to be some sort of, maybe, I don't know if you want to call it an incentive, but it's like, what is the point in me trying to be a father or, a husband and do for my family if every time that's just being shot down all the time, or I'm not getting any help. So yes, I agree with that.
Shane, any final thoughts?
Well, so the only thing I'll say is this, is that you use the word transcendent, Shannon, and so the one thing that I would add to that, which complements what you said, is that truth and God are transcendent and eminent, are both, up there outside of reality and here close to us. We receive the Eucharist, which is transcendent and eminent at the same time. And I think that's one of the problems with very, very stiff-necked, with people that are really stiff-necked and obsessed with tradition, but without application, is they're elevating transcendence over eminence. And I think that's the important balance. And what you have with a lot of Christian churches is eminence, but you don't have the transcendent principle, and I think what you've got to have is a fusion of both.
Very good, guys.
I think that's kind of what you were alluding to earlier.
Yeah.
Thank you for discussing. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you, David.